I mean,
Yeah.
this is my final question. So I just wanted to ask you this thing. See, there is a continuation saying that it is basically Lenin which has led to Stalin. There is hardly any difference between Lenin and Stalin.
There is at least one difference. Read Lenin's last texts. They are tragic. He said things are lost. He said it's even ridiculous to talk about socialism. He said all we can do is to bring a little bit more of bourgeois culture to Soviet Union. Lenin's last politics was the exact opposite of what 1 year later Stalin advocated socialism in one country. There is at least this big difference that Lenin, I agree, I'm not sanctifying Lenin. I'm just saying that in the last years, Lenin saw all when you quoted, somebody quoted just before this, when this, Lenin, working class and so on, Lenin, party of the working class, Lenin even said something wonderfully sarcastic in 22. He said, in Russia, we have the dictatorship of the working class party without the working class. He said practically all of the working class was killed in the civil war. He was open to all these paradoxes. He knew it's nonsense to talk about working class dictatorship, there is no working class and so on. I like this totally resigned despair, but nonetheless pragmatically taken despair of the late Lenin. Said, democracy yes, but anarchy no. Democracy yes, but you have somebody who coordinates.
Yeah. So we'll have Akhil has a question, and any others who need to ask, if you just sort of identify. Yeah, we'll have the gentleman then I'll come to you. Okay.
So, I agree with you that the radical left is the only source of real politics in the future, but I was just curious about how different and more difficult it is for movements to have effect now than they had even 30 or 40 years ago, in the 60s or before that. Just the difficulty of movements.
Thanks very much for this question, because
yeah.
I like questions which begin with, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Which means while you are saying this, you are already sharpening your knife behind. No, I see your problem, and I'm even very critical here. Some people thought the Porto Alegre anti-globalist movement. Yeah. I think it's still a pure protest movement. Right. Sorry, I'm sorry very much.
So you see, one of the difficulties is this, and I just was wondering if you were sort of clear about it, because I think I'm clear about it, but I'm just curious to know how you think. You see, one of the things is that in the last 30 years or so, when a movement succeeds and you get a form of change, a left change, there's a terrible fear of whatever happens that there'll be capital flight. Capital flight.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be the flight of capital. So you get a progressive government as a result of a movement, but then there's this fear that there will be capital flight. So even if somebody's come into power on a mandate, which is progressive, they find their hands tied because, since the dismantling of the Bretton Woods institutions, there's capital flight is much easier than it used to be 40 or 50 years ago. So there is the fact that there can be movements, but what emerges out of them is constrained just by the nature of a changed form of capital. Now, what I'm curious about is, are developments like Morales and so on in Bolivia, do they show that fear of capital flight is just simply irrational?
Sorry.
That's it. That's the question.
Yeah. No, I see your problem. Yeah. First, I must say that the reason I admire Morales much more than Chavez, I think he or even my big hero would be Aristide in Haiti. This is why he was overthrown. I admire these people because, especially Aristide in Haiti, they knew they are taking over in a totally desperate situation. They knew, but nonetheless, pragmatically, they tried to do modestly here and there whatever can be done. So what I'm saying is that here I'm very pragmatic. I know this is a very real problem, and I deeply agree with you. What's the story of the left in the last decades? It's some progressive leaders like Mandela in South Africa, Lula in Brazil, taking over. For the usually it takes about 2 years to dress them, to contain them. Then you see that basically they accept the game. And even, I will go even further. Here I see truly possibilities of a further catastrophic development. For example, in South Africa. Take Zimbabwe. I thought for a long time maybe Mugabe should be given a chance. But then I spoke with people, blacks from there. They told me, no, Mugabe is crazy, ruining the country. And they gave me a very simple theory, which I think is basically true about Zimbabwe. Namely that the problem was that after the black majority in elections took over, nothing happened practically for ordinary poor people. If anything, there was more poverty. All that effectively happened was a new rich ruling joined with whites, black class. So now this class has a temptation when, of course, then insatisfaction among the poor continues. The only way they see to avoid being themselves target of violence, of rebellion, of law, is to play the race card. To say, no, it's remainders of neo-colonialism and so on and so on. The tragedy is that although they are not doing so bad in these purely economic terms, like statistics, friends are telling me they worry along the same lines for South Africa. That effectively ordinary people, it's basically poor blacks live the same life as under apartheid. Some of them better, some of them even worse, especially there is much more uncertainty and crime. So there is dissatisfaction. And there are already tendencies that, so again, the only thing that really changed is a new rich black class, basically dominating the country together with very strong still ruling white class. So the temptation of the black class is, in order not to threaten their own privileges, to play the race card, And this I see, and here again, I agree with you. International capital is a very tricky thing, You can do your reforms, if they go too fast, capital flees and you are where you are, which is why, incidentally, I am getting, I'm sorry if you disagree with me, more and more critical about Chavez. I think he's first I admired Chavez. Why? Because he was the only one, apart from Aristide and later Morales, who did something which is crucial to do. He really politically mobilized this Aboriginal Indian in the sense of whatever, majority there. And this is crucial. I mean,